Hello everyone, this is Rodrigo. Welcome to the first episode of the Afterlife show. We talk about Spiritism, which is a rational philosophy. And today I'm here with Allan, who is a very good friend of mine and also an enthusiast of Spiritism, a very knowledgeable person around this subject and many others. And today we are going to talk about what is Spiritism and to discuss the main ideas. Yep. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to have you here. Mm-hmm. And I hope we have a great show, and this is the beginning, but we hopefully will have many other episodes.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Rodrigo. I'm very honored, to be honest, to be here. It's a pleasure to be sitting here and discussing such an important topic, which I truly believe. And if I can help in any way, if I can collaborate, it will be a pleasure. So thank you. I'm very honored. Yeah.
Great.
To be in the first episode, very honored.
Yeah. Allan is a very busy person, and for her to be here, it's such an honor for us.
It took some time, yeah.
So we are going to start to talk about Spiritism with probably the most important thing for us to understand. Yep. What is Spiritism and what's the difference between Spiritism and Spiritualism. So if you could just give us an idea of those concepts.
Yeah, so Spiritism is spiritualist in the sense that we have some similarities to the spiritualists and some differences. So I'm going to start with what's similar and then what's the difference. So with spiritualists, they believe that there's a cause to everything, to the universe, that we are not our physical bodies, which is very similar to this Spiritism as well, that we live beyond our physical life, and in some spiritualists' philosophies, they do believe that you come several times here in the physical plane, reincarnating, so that's similar. But Spiritism is different in a sense that we have a more rational approach, and the way that that the philosophy started is quite different and quite unique, which I think is very important to point out. And we'll be talking about that hopefully a little bit further in our conversation. And so we do believe in reincarnation. We believe that there's a greater cause to everything. But everything is based in trying to align science with the philosophy of things that science cannot yet explain, but we're almost there, I believe.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we could start this discussion talking about some of the key concepts around Spiritism. So I brought some ideas here. We've already discussed some. And maybe we can explore a little bit those topics. So I think probably one of the most important things, and probably the primary, the main idea, is that we believe in a primary cause. Yeah. And I think if you could just explain us what is this primary cause that how can we understand this primary cause in Spiritism?
Yeah, I'm going to follow really what Spiritism tells us, and we can expand from that.
Great.
So first, I would like to share how I started with this philosophy, how I came across that, if that's okay.
Yeah,
is that
excellent.
Something? Because then I can make the link. Because in all my life, I've always believed that there was a cause to everything, since I was very young. And I came from a specific religion. I was educated in a certain religion when I was younger, but it didn't satisfy all my questions, to be honest. And when I was around 12 to 13, I started feeling things that I couldn't explain. And it might be that people who are listening to this have the same sense. So I would go into environments and I wouldn't really feel very comfortable. Sometimes I would feel actually really bad. I would walk in, I was fine, and I would walk out, and I wasn't fine.
Physically?
Physically fine. And at some point, I really thought I was crazy. And I was really concerned. I didn't want to tell my parents. Although my father was a Spiritist. So
he already knew.
He already knew, yeah, but I didn't, because I was raised following my mother's religion. And it was challenging for me because I didn't know where to go to. I started noticing or perceiving things that other people wouldn't perceive. And that was quite a challenge for a young person going through their teens. So my dad presented me with the first book that the Spiritist philosophy sits upon, which is the Spirit's book. And when I read that, it was like I was coming home. Really, the ideas really connected to me, because I am a rational kind of thinker. Although I think that not everything is rational, because we don't have all the knowledge that we could in terms of scientific thinking. But it came, and it was really, I could really relate to that.
You could connect the dots.
I could connect the dots, and that really brought some soothing to my heart, because I was really anxious. I didn't know who to talk to, or was I normal? Is this normal? What is normal? And it was a challenge.
And I think many people can feel the same, because when you experience some things that are not usual, you kind of, you just don't know what it is. And if you don't have any knowledge or any idea that could explain you a little bit what's happening,
it is challenging.
It can be very scary.
And there is a lot of information out there, especially nowadays. When I was a teenager, there wasn't that many channels of information. Now there are, but I wanted something you could trust. And actually, I was very fortunate that my father actually was Spiritist and had access to this information that we are going to be discussing here today. It made a lot of difference. And I really understood that I am normal, just because I have some perceptions that are slightly different, or enhanced perception, let's put it that way. It made a difference for me.
And how old were you at that time?
I was around 13, I would say. I started feeling things even younger, but at the time I just thought, I don't know, some things I thought it was kind of dreamy. I wasn't quite aware, but in my teens it really kind of started showing. And believe me, I'm not anything exceptional. I don't see anything. I don't. But I do perceive some things. And it's quite difficult if you do perceive and you
and don't, even to put in
words. So for me, it's more of kind of a perception of things that other people can't perceive, even emotions or things like that.
We are probably going through many different kinds of phenomena, not in this first episode, but probably on the next episode we'll talk about different kind of mediumship and things that it's good for us to understand, so we can get a better idea of what's happening if you are feeling strange or different things.
So you were asking about the primary cause and how Spiritism sees that. What do you think, and how do you see this concept of primary cause? So the Spiritist philosophy, it says that there is a primary cause to everything, which is extremely rational to all this. If you think of the universe, and if you look at any videos where you see the size of the Earth compared to the rest of the universe, it's impossible to think that this was by chance. It's impossible.
The complexity and all it's for me, I think quite similar, because it's just rational. If we just see anything around us, and even a building or something, just to think that an object could be created by chance, it's unbelievable, irrational.
Absolutely.
And to think about the universe being just created by chance is also irrational. So one of the key concepts in Spiritism is that for every effect we have a cause.
Absolutely.
And if we have an intelligent effect like us, like everybody else, humans and animals, we must have a primary intelligent cause.
Yes.
And that's why we believe in, it's kind of an axiom, we could say. Yeah, basic idea in Spiritism.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was actually the first question.
It is the first
in
question.
the Spirit's book. What is God?
Yeah, could you give us an idea of, when you say the first book, what it is, and
Oh yeah, of course.
just for people to understand the questions and how is structured the philosophy?
Maybe also contextualize, if that's okay.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Who was the person who came up with this? Did he come up with it, or was it a different kind of experience? So everything started in France. Well, it didn't start in France, but the philosophical part started in France. So it was in the 1800s, mid 1800s, and there were several psychic phenomena happening all around the world. It started very largely in the United States.
Around 47?
Yeah, around
just
47.
early?
Yeah, 1847.
1847, yeah.
And people couldn't quite explain what that was, and there were several theories of what that might be. And at the time, there was this man in France who had grown up with Pestalozzi and studying in Pestalozzi's school. So he was an educator, and he had a very scientific mind. And his name was Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail. And he had written several books. He was someone who people respected in terms of community, in the community, scientific community. And people started saying, what do you think about this phenomena? And he said, I don't know, because I've never gone to any of the meetings that they do that. And they said, why don't you come and see? And he said, no, I don't have time for that initially.
Yeah. And the phenomena was, it was kind of a show. We could say that there were many shows at that time where people just get together around a table and trying to communicate to spirit, and many people didn't believe that that was true. And also there were many cases that
it wasn't true.
It wasn't true.
Because it was easy to kind of fake it. Magicians have tricks, and it was the tables would move, everyone would put their hands around the table, and the tables would move. And there were people who were capable of faking all that. But one day, one person called him and said, look, we have a serious group who's actually trying to study this phenomena. And would you like to come and observe and give us your opinion?
And this friend was also a very reputable person. So
very reputable.
He was kind of unsure, but he was a very open person. So he decided to attend.
To attend and see, since it's this person who is inviting me, and he said that it's a serious group, they're not asking silly questions or irrelevant questions. They're really focusing on understanding what's happening. So he attended. And at the time, because of magnetism, there was a huge group of people studying magnetism and human magnetism. Mesmer was doing kind of that, was in that kind of realm. He thought that might be what was happening.
And he was indeed a very... he studied magnetism for more than 30 years, so he knew many of the possibilities around this kind of phenomena. So he was kind of prepared to evaluate what was happening. So he was someone knowledgeable that could actually give an opinion that counted. But when he got there, he actually noticed that the phenomena, or what they call themselves spirits, they actually gave answers that were rational, like that were answering something that made sense.
and sometimes way beyond the capability of whoever was serving as a medium and was channeling that spirit. And so he became interested then.
Yeah, he started to investigate.
Yeah, he started to investigate.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is that even children,
Oh yeah, even children.
were communicating,
Yes.
and the ideas behind the texts and the messages were so complex and
Yes.
so
Way beyond their
beyond-
years.
yeah, yeah.
It was impossible that it was teens,
Yeah.
even younger than teens,
yeah.
were actually saying things that were way beyond their years.
And even people without any education. So
Yeah.
there were so many evidence that at least he should investigate.
Yeah.
Not that he was sure at the beginning, but he was
Yes.
willing to discover
Yeah.
if that was a show or if
Yes.
that was for real.
Yeah, he really wanted to see, is this for real?
Yeah.
He didn't say, no, that isn't, or yeah, that is. He really approached with a more of a analytical kind of mind and approach. And with time, what he adopted a method. There was no science, as there aren't any science right now that could actually measure what's happening in different kind of realms
Yeah, yeah.
or dimensions. So he developed a method that was the closest possible to a method that people could rely on.
Yeah.
So he got some questions about things that we want to know about the universe.
More
about
philosophical ideas.
Yeah, philosophical ideas.
Because
Who are we?
It's funny because in the beginning people started to ask, oh, there is a spirit here answering questions. So people started to ask questions, silly things.
Yeah.
Am I going to be rich? Am I going to find someone
Yeah.
to marry? And things that were not so important in
Yeah.
terms of universal knowledge.
Yes.
And he had a much more serious
Approach.
So he wanted to ask the questions that were essential in terms of philosophy.
Yeah.
So Allan gave us an example. The first question he asked, "What is God?"
Yes.
He didn't ask who is God, or he was already thinking, what is this?
Yes, because it can't really, we can't ever, and there are many modern day kind of thinkers that know that it can't be like a Superman.
Yeah. But at the time, it was kind
yes,
of...
yeah. But at the time, people imagined the image of whoever created us, the source or supreme intelligence, as very similar to what a man would be. But anthropomorphic,
Yeah.
like a very, very super kind of
Human,
being,
yeah.
human being.
Yeah.
And they knew at the time that that would be literally impossible. It's way
Yeah.
beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
In that sense, that it's not, you can't associate to a human being. So he asked, what is God?
What is God? And could you give us an idea of how Pestalozzi, who was Pestalozzi, and how he helped to create this mindset and all this cultural background in Allan Kardec's education, and how this influenced all the development of the philosophy?
Yeah, we don't believe that much in chance. So we know that. So Hippolyte Léon Denis Arrivail, he adopted a pen name called Allan Kardec, and from this point on, I'm just going to refer to him as Allan Kardec, just because it's simpler.
It's easier.
It's easier for me to pronounce that shorter name. So he was very fortunate. He was raised by a family who was very open-minded in terms of beliefs. Although they did have a religion, it seems, apparently. Historically, that's what they say. But they were very open-minded. They weren't very strict. And Pestalozzi was someone who changed education. He is really a milestone in education, in the way that society approached educating children. And he had a very unique kind of approach, methodology and understanding of how people learn. and how education should be. And it was more of exploration, that people could learn. Everything was inside them, and they had to go there and discover and Allan Kardec explore the world, and then make logical conclusions, and from that you learned.
Yeah.
You developed your learning.
It's interesting that Pestalozzi used to say that when you are a child, you shouldn't be taught.
Yes.
You shouldn't receive the knowledge. You should be able to go out. So the whole idea of the methodology was the class should be outside, so the children could explore the world, the nature, and then with the curiosity start to ask questions, and then discover by themselves, with the help of course of someone.
Yeah, the teacher would be, like today, a facilitator of learning, rather than somebody pushing information onto that person, and they were sitting there and just receiving the information. Yeah. So Allan Kardec was brought up with very open-minded parents, and he studied with Pestalozzi. So he learned that kind of approach to education, and that idea of exploring and being curious and being open-minded to see, where is this going to take me? Asking questions, obviously. And to the point that when he was older, he actually stepped in directing Pestalozzi's school for a while, because Pestalozzi was away, so he directed Pestalozzi's school. So he had that background and that kind of reputation at the time, which was very solid.
This was in Swiss?
Yes, in Switzerland,
then he went back to France.
Yeah.
And he even started to write books around the education system in France, because he was so influenced by this different way of learning that he tried to bring to
back to France.
Back to France.
And they did make lots of changes if people study history in terms of education in France. But so he had that mentality. So when he came across that, he said, I have to find a way where I can actually understand and get some sort of concrete information. So what he did was he collected a series of questions. It was a lot of questions. And he sent it out to mediums or people who channeled spirits or who could listen to spirits, and asked the question to different people around the world. And he had a
because
group.
it was not something only in France.
No, it wasn't. And this is not something new, because we have people who have, even here in Australia, the Aboriginal people who have contact to other realms or other dimensions. And it's something that it's not new. It's just that he put it together in a way that it made sense. So he sent all these questions to all these mediums all around the world, in France and Europe including. And then he received the answers given by, they would channel, like the mediums would channel spirits, and the spirits would answer the questions that Kardec sent. And then he received all this information, and he would see whatever it is that had the same answer all over the world. He would assume, because he didn't have a better methodology, he would assume that was a universal truth. And he compiled all that information into a book that he called the Spirit's Book. And he always said that the Spirit's Book is not something that he wrote. He just compiled that information. And
that was one of the reasons he adopted the pen name.
The pen name, yes. So he called himself Allan Kardec because he had published books under his name, and he didn't want people to get confused of what was coming from him. And even though he adopted a pen name, sometimes people would say, you wrote the book, and he would say, I didn't. All I did is collect all the information, organize, got everything that actually the spirits responded the same all over the world, and then he put it together in this book. And that's why, for me, it was something that really attracted me. That idea that it wasn't one person, because a person is fallible.
What are the odds that you would have the same answer from different people around the world,
different
cultures that didn't have the contact.
Yeah.
So
different age group, different gender.
Yeah.
So people from all over
Yeah.
who were mediums, and he really tried to select the mediums he worked with. They were people who had a more reputable life, and they were trying to improve themselves, and they were people who were who wanted to do good. And he tried to surround, because he noticed that you have mediums from all backgrounds, all walks of life, but the ones who received the messages that seemed to connect with each other around the world were the ones that were actually trying to be people who were doing good and trying to be the best version of themselves.
It's funny that this is one of the reasons I have connected to Spiritism as well. Because when I understood the methodology, and also when you read the books and you see the consistency around all the philosophy, it's very interesting that he was not skeptical, but he was very cautious around assuming things without trying to investigate deeper. So I would say that I'm more on the side of a skeptical person, although, of course, after studying many years of Spiritism, it's easy to see the consistency and there is something there for real. But in the beginning, I think this was one of the things that I got really...
and for me too, because I could actually... It was more trustable in my understanding if it came from someone who collected information from all over the world and put the ones that had similar answers together. So that's why when he asked, what is God? Which is one of the bases of the philosophy, is that there is a creator, that we can call it whatever it is that we want. It doesn't matter the name.
It's not the idea we had in the past previously about God, but as a primary cause, a supreme intelligence, or something much beyond our understanding. And
that originated everything. And that makes a difference to everything that came after, if you had that understanding. So it's the way that Kardec organized the book is very logical and very pedagogical, I think, because you can just go to the parts that interest you and read the little bits, because it's a question and answer.
And it's a dance book.
It is a dance book, because it has a lot of content.
Yeah.
But because it's question and answer, you can choose the question and answers that you want.
You can just pick up a chapter and go through it.
Or you can just pick questions and go through it.
Yeah.
I read the whole book when my dad gave it to me. But after that, I would go back to the ones that really, because I was going through all that, I had to reread. And we have to reread.
And it is
many times.
It is so complex.
It is and at the same time, so not complex.
So simple. But what I mean is, it's so dense in terms of information. Every time I read something, I pick something that I haven't before. It's very impressive, because I've been studying Spiritism for a long time now, and more than, I don't know, 20 years, even more.
Give away your age, right?
I'll be cautious about it. But the thing is that every time I read it, I get a new idea, a more deeper understanding, and this is one of the things that inspires me to continue studying. So
going back to our
so we talked about the primary cause, which is one of the key ideas, but there are many others. So we could maybe discuss about...
maybe the key ideas, so people know what we're talking about, the key ideas of the philosophy. So there are some key ideas that make a whole lot of difference, which is first that there is a creator. That's that we came from somewhere. And as I just heard somebody said, that the creator wouldn't build a ladder going nowhere. So meaning that our lives here is not going to end. Nothing's going to happen after that. So there's no end. It's just continuity.
It's the second.
And that connects to one of the second kind of pillars,
Which is the
immortality of the soul.
Yeah,
So the soul only has one life,
exactly.
extra physical life.
Our death is not a
Our physical
death.
is not death.
Yeah,
So the spirit only has one life, actually.
Yeah.
But here in this physical plane, we may have several different lives.
yeah.
Which leads to the other kind
To
of
the third idea.
which is reincarnation.
Yeah, so immortality of the soul and reincarnation are deeply connected
Very connected.
because one is consequence of the other. So by reincarnation, we understand the different lives
Yes.
we have in this world.
In this world.
Yeah,
And-
using a different body, not
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like we change clothes, we change bodies,
Yeah.
and it has a purpose. I think that that's one of the things that Kardec asked the spirits, and that makes a difference. That there is a purpose to that, which falls into another belief that there is a law called the law of progress that all nature follows. It's a natural law.
Yeah.
So everything is subject to that law.
This is interesting as well because people could understand Spiritism as, is it a creationist philosophy? Because, as we said, we believe in a primary cause. But at the same time, it is evolutionist.
It is evolutionist.
Because we understand that progress and nature drives evolution.
Yes.
So it's not a creationist idea,
no.
as we understand in different religions and different philosophies.
That everything was created as it were. We
We
believe that it was created from the simplest organisms, just like science now tells us.
Yeah.
The simplest organisms evolving. So we are part of nature. Some people forget that we are part of nature. And as part of nature, we also evolve.
Yeah.
Not only our physical bodies, but our consciousness.
Yeah.
And there's one distinction in the in Spiritism that, and Kardec asked that to the spirits, and all around the world they had the similar answers, that we do not regress.
Oh yeah, this is very important.
Yeah,
Because there are some philosophies that believe, they call it metempsychosis.
Yes.
Which is the ability to reincarnate in different realms, different beings.
Yeah, like an animal.
Like
for
an
example.
animal. So there are different spiritualist philosophies that believe in that, and in Spiritism we don't.
We don't.
Yeah, we see a progression, and
we believe that you're always progressing,
in
and the animals are
complexity,
always progressing as well. So it's important to notice, because some people say, but some animals, they are so intelligent.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because everything is following the same law of progress. So everything is evolving. And I think that is an important distinction, that whatever it is that we built, that we learn, it will stay with us.
We never lost it.
We never lose it.
Yeah.
Although sometimes some of our skills might be dormant, so we can develop other skills.
Yeah, this is interesting. This is an important thing.
It's important. It might be dormant,
Yeah.
so we can develop other aspects of our personality and of our consciousness. But it's there.
Yeah.
We don't ever lose. So that's the other thing. So the law of progress, reincarnation, and the immortality of the soul are very, very
connected.
close,
And
closely
also,
related.
this idea brings us a concept of justice as well.
Oh yeah.
Because if you acquired some kind of knowledge, you will have it, although you might don't express it in a given life.
Yes.
For just because you probably want to develop or need to develop another ability or.
Yeah, I think it's also important in this topic of evolution and progression that we believe that we can reincarnate in any body, like any kind of body. You're not, if I'm born a woman, not necessarily in my other life I'm going to be born in a body of a woman. I can choose depending, because it really, the focus is evolution.
Yeah, and this changes many things.
Yeah, so equality.
Yeah.
And seeing every human being as an equal.
Yeah.
In a sense of our essence, it's a given. Like everyone has the same rights because we are all the same in essence.
Yeah, and it's interesting that we also understand that we express sexuality in a physical life, but in essence, we don't have the distinction,
the
gender, the
distinction of
distinctions.
genders. Yes. Which is very important. And he asked these questions as well in the Spirit's book, which was very progressive.
Very. It's a very progressive.
1850 something.
Yeah.
1857 when he launched the book.
Maybe a little bit earlier.
It was a shock to people who read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kardec had once said that if science says something different, stick with science.
Yeah.
And this is for me, it's a very interesting thing as well.
Yeah, always keeping in mind that science is also advancing.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
If you think back, when I was going through my early years of schooling, there was no such thing as quantum realms or quantum physics. It was everything mechanic, everything Newton, which seemed to work fine to an extent. But what Kardec said that was important, like you mentioned, that if science proves something that's contrary to what he had written, then we should stick with science.
Exactly.
Because it might be that there was a glitch in... But so far, so good, right?
Yeah,
Until
so
this
far
very day, from what we read, it's actually ahead of science, what Kardec brought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Okay, so we also understand that there is communication between the physical body, the physical realm, and the spiritual
realm, if we call it that way, yes.
So this is another key concept, because when we probably on the next episode we'll discuss about mediumship and channeling. And this is one of the key ideas, because we believe that there is communication, and it's not new.
No, it's not new. Since forever.
Yeah.
Like since the dawn of times, there were people who could channel and could perceive different realms and have an understanding of where we really came from, that we're calling here the spiritual realm or the spiritual world, and the physical realm or the physical world. So there is ways of communicating. And for me at the time when I was learning about, that's what I wanted to understand. Because it's not the communication, but the interaction of what happens in a different dimension with what happens in the physical. How much can they influence? That was something that was a burning question for me. And am I feeling things that maybe people can't feel or see, that maybe it's because I'm just feeling something else that's from a different dimension or vibration or whatever you choose to call it. So that was a part that really interested me. And Kardec asks, and there is actually the Spirit's book is divided into 4 parts. So the first part is of the causes, which was talking about
the creation,
the creator, and everything that we discussed in the beginning. And then the second part is the interaction between the physical world and the spiritual world.
Yeah, that gave originated a
whole book. A whole book.
Yeah.
All the parts originated a whole book.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, it wasn't the book that I liked most.
Which one? The Spiritist?
The second book, the phenomena.
The phenomena.
I always was interested about the philosophy.
Yes.
Not so much as around the phenomena.
Yeah.
And I see that there are many people that are very interested.
Yeah.
Maybe because I don't feel anything, so I don't have.
You
so
think
much,
so? Yeah.
Intuition.
Intuition is.
I might have an intuition, but
yeah.
I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. So for me, was always the philosophy, the ideas, and.
Interesting enough, I was very curious about that, but the philosophy was what really
Was
hooked me.
okay.
Because it made so much sense.
Yeah, because it explained.
It explained justice and
Yeah.
why things might happen, and that everything is based on love. Like, that's the binding force of the universe.
Yeah, this
And,
is a good conversation for us
for
to
another
have.
time, because that's the whole
because it
thing.
is the concept, the main concepts
Yes.
around the creation and the primary cause, the love, justice,
Yes,
truth.
truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
This-
are what holds us all together. Like, that's where we came from. Yeah.
Great. So we could also talk about maybe free will and
Yeah, that's
the
one
idea.
of the that's one of the gifts. We believe that as we evolve, there's a point where we earn the right to choose.
to choose. That
Which
the animals
They don't have
as
free
we have.
As we have, yes. And free will came associated to thinking through the mind. When we developed that consciousness,
The ego.
the thinking mind, that's where we received also the ability to choose the path that we're going to go through.
Yeah, and this is the key point, isn't it? In terms of when we have the ability to choose, then we have the moral consequence and
Yes.
all the consequence around
Yeah.
our acts and our
And responsibility.
the responsibility.
Responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is something widely said nowadays.
Yeah.
But when he wrote this, compiled this book, that wasn't something that people were talking about.
Yeah.
Today, yes, humanity is evolving as a consciousness.
Yeah.
And people are consciously choosing to evolve. Where in the past, everyone was evolving.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Everyone was
Yeah, yeah,
evolving, knowingly or not.
Yeah.
But
It's-
now you can choose.
Yeah, it's more.
Like,
we are more,
we're
aware.
Yes, we have that awareness.
Yeah. And what would you say that is this? Because we are talking about the concepts and the philosophy, but by the end, we just want to
Why?
know why and what's the goal of these ideas.
Yeah.
What do you think it is the?
So the goal of this, and I've heard, like I said, several thinkers that from our time as well say the same thing, which is because it's the truth, is to evolve, is to become the best version of ourselves that we possibly can. And if we do that in each life, wonderful, but it is a marathon.
Slowly.
Yeah, it's something that it's not in one life you manage to evolve. Like, you will evolve to your best, but you can evolve even more over time. So our goal is that. But all this knowledge came not for us to like logically, rationally understand it, but actually put that in practice, because it has a moral consequence.
And that's the difficult part.
That's the difficult, but that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. And for me, it's the most difficult. I love the philosophy. It's very difficult to put in practice.
As everything that,
Yeah.
because you're changing a habit from millennia that we were developing as beings. So you're trying to break through that.
Yeah.
And let's say that we started becoming consciousness in the past 50 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Like
All
some
that-
people before that, obviously. Like in humanity, there's people in all different levels of consciousness, which is wonderful, because people more conscious can actually contribute to the people who are developing their consciousness.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also the culture and everything that, because it's not just individual evolution.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Society.
Yes.
We have now psychology, and it's quite new.
Oh, it is
It's
very
very
new.
recent
Yes.
in comparing to our history as human. So it's just we developing new tools to
Yes.
evolve. So
Yeah.
when I look at Spiritism, I think it's just a new tool.
Yes.
It's a very powerful,
Very powerful
tool.
tool.
Very, because it gives you perspective.
Yeah.
It gives you a perspective that no other philosophy, at least that I had contact with.
Yeah, and I think that it was more because not everyone's going to connect with the message. Parts of the message, I believe, yes, because it's
Very
universal.
broad and
yeah, and it's universal truth. It's something that we are discovering in all different different areas of activities. Like that you have like moral and ethics. That more and more people we're going to do that because that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and not because
Not
you are
because
afraid.
not because you're afraid or not because you're going to get a bonus, whatever. It's just because that's the best thing. That's how you're going to contribute to the best.
To the world.
Yeah. So I think that the philosophy will not be something for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's going to be for those who are looking for, like you and me, something that is based on some sort of rationality that speaks to the heart and also to the mind. And that person will benefit from what Kardec collected, and also because it really, for me, it really says something if it came from different sources all around the world and the idea converge.
It's very interesting,
very reliable.
Very reliable and very interesting to think. We have the scientific method.
Yes.
But how to apply a methodology like that to an intelligence that has free will?
Yes.
So when you're talking about physical phenomena, natural phenomena, it's very
easy. Straightforward.
Straightforward,
not easy.
Not easy because it has a great complexity. But when you talk about humans or spirits, which is humans, and by the end it's just another soul. It's very difficult to apply a methodology.
Yes.
So he was really very smart in this sense to, okay, I can't apply that, but what can I do? What can I do?
To at least get things that seems to be a universal truth.
Yeah.
And that's why for me it speaks to my heart and my mind, and it's different from everything I had seen, although I think that everywhere in life the truth is coming. And people learn in different ways, and they have a different way of thinking. But I do believe if a person wants something that speaks to the heart and to the mind at the same time. And there are several scientists around the world that you see that they even have many videos and many courses that are trying to make this link between spirituality and science.
But at least now it's still a little bit difficult for me to have this connection, because I think what Spiritism brings to me is that it gives me a solid structure of knowledge. So when I see some researches and even people that are trying to connect the dots, I still think there's, at least for me, and I'm more to a skeptical person, too esoteric, too not too concrete. And when I read this, I usually find a very solid big starting point.
I agree with you. Because it might be from a mind of one person, an idea which might bring a lot of truth, but when you get the collective kind of aspect that Allan Kardec brought, it gives a different kind of solid basis. I agree with you in that.
Okay, so we gave already a brief story about Kardec, and one thing that maybe we should discuss a little bit is about the qualities of his personality. So I just put here the curiosity, the rationality, and he also was very well known at the time, wasn't he?
He was very well known. So Allan Kardec, he had all these qualities that were very visible in his personality, that very kind of rational thinker, but at the same time he had this heart and connection to something else, an idea that society could improve as a whole that was amazing. And he was very, very well known and very respected. His opinions were really respected.
This is interesting, because he was touching areas that are very difficult for a more scientific-minded person
Yes.
to go through.
Absolutely.
So he had to be cautious because he
Yes.
had the reputation to
Yeah, he did.
preserve and
Yeah. But at some point he adopted the pen name, and that was his pen name, and that's how people referred to him.
Yeah.
So it was like a different life within his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was amazing. Really interesting to read. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the books, what would you say to people that are interested in understand more and study a little bit of the philosophy?
Yeah. I started with the Spirits book.
It's the first one.
It's the first
main
one, and it gives you a flavor of the other books.
Mm-hmm.
So each part, the book is divided into 4 parts, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
Each part, after that, he noticed that he could clarify, and he expanded that into books.
Yeah.
So one talking about creation itself and how things started, how things evolved. The other one giving a different kind of understanding of what happens to us after life.
Mm-hmm. This is a very interesting one.
Very interesting one because it's kind of disruptive in terms of what people imagine happens after they depart from this life. And he gives a very, very good and hopeful kind of view of what happens after our physical lives end here.
So this book
and has questions and answers at the end as well. Not questions and answers, but
testimonials.
Yes.
So this is interesting because he collected several channeling and messages from different spirits after death.
Yes, telling what happens
telling what happened to them.
Yeah.
And it's very insightful because
very insightful.
It's very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that caught my attention. Mm-hmm. It's not, it's like this. No. Anyone can experience totally different things.
Yeah.
According to their lives, the life that they had, the attachment and all the things that we have in life. So,
but very interesting because it gives you a lot of hope in terms of what to expect. It's not rigid, like you said. Each person is unique, and obviously, the afterlife would be unique.
Yes.
Yeah, we're just stepping out of a meat suit, as they say.
Yeah.
But there is, depending on what you've done with your life, there's different experiences that you have afterwards. So that's another book. And the book about communication, interrelations between the physical world and the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. I think that's important for those who experience things that other people don't experience.
For sure. But do you think this should be, let's say a person is feeling things or seeing things, do you think?
No, not
the first one, maybe? Maybe
no.
start with the basics.
Because it's question and answers. You can go and you can say, okay.
Understand what's happening and then go to the phenomena.
Yeah, because the phenomena is a natural phenomena. That's important that we point out. The fact that somebody sees things that other people don't see, obviously that there are illnesses where that might happen, like hallucination. That's not what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Although sometimes hallucination...
It kind of mixes because you don't know if the person doesn't know. Yeah. Doesn't have knowledge.
But
there is a distinction. Yeah, there is a distinction.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the person should start reading that book. Mm-hmm. But that is a book that at some point, if the person studies, they'll understand that everything is natural. It's just that people have a certain organization in their physical bodies that allows them to perceive things that other people don't.
Yeah.
In different ways. And it might be hearing, it might be seeing, it might be something that they see with their mind's eyes, but they don't physically see. Yeah. Very strong intuitions, premonitions. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing that's out of the natural world. It's just that we hadn't had access to the rules. And that's what Kardec started bringing.
Yeah, it's interesting that the whole concept of Spiritism is about bringing new phenomena, new laws natural laws,
Yeah.
natural things, because
they aren't new. They are eternal.
yeah, they are not new,
but they're new for us.
they are new for us. They are a new understanding of phenomena that we
didn't understand
we
before.
didn't understand.
We didn't even understand that there was a possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I think we've approached many different
That's really good.
ideas. Really good.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about? Do you have any other thing that you think is? What do you think it is important for someone that is feeling insecure or feeling really bad because of this physical
Sensations
sensation?
that they have?
Yeah. Do you think that only the book? Do you think they should?
Well, if they
Look.
can find, well, we're here in Australia, and there are a few centers that you can actually study.
Yeah.
Where we study Spiritism and Allan Kardec's book. So you can look that up.
Yeah. Almost
Yeah.
Most of the countries have.
Most countries do have.
Yeah.
And they have literature in their own language. I just learned that the Spirit's book was translated to Chinese.
Even
and
Chinese, Russian.
Norwegian.
Norwegian as
Yes,
well. I
they
didn't know
launched
that.
it in Norway. So there are possibilities of people studying it. Because I think that if you have a group, because it's something that it is somewhat under your control. That's important that the person know. That nobody is going to take your body, although it seems like sometimes it seems that way. And that everything goes through the mind.
Yeah.
So if the person understands that everything goes through the mind
and not the body.
And not the body.
Yeah.
So the control of the body is through the mind. And they are in charge of their mind.
And also the more you learn about it,
Yes.
the phenomenon, the more control you have.
Yeah, the more control and the more you know how to understand what's happening. And
Yeah.
So I think that it's important if a person does suffer from any kind of psychic perception, that they should study and know that they're normal. They're not somebody that's abnormal. It's just a different level of perception that other people might not have. Although I think that humanity, people are being more and more sensitive and like they perceive more than maybe they did in the past. Yeah. And for me, the message that maybe would be the central, like the core message that I would leave here in the first episode is that there are many forms of beliefs, and not everyone is going to think that this is the best belief, but for me it is. And I think for you it is.
Yeah, for sure.
But bits and pieces might be something that will touch your heart. But for some people, this is really going to resonate and really speak to their hearts and their minds. And if that's the case, you should read something, because it really is something that's based in solid kind of development, not from one man, but he collected everything and put it into these books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think we have lots of food for thought, and we have already 1 hour for the first episode.
Oh wow, 1 hour, yeah.
And hopefully we'll have many others.
Yes.
I'm very grateful for you to be here and to share your story, to share your knowledge. And I'm sure you'll be here for many others. I hope so. And if you want more information, we also have a website for our study group in Melbourne. It's called Spiritist Society of Melbourne, spiritistsocietyofmelbourne.org. And there we have public lectures. We are starting now in March, 31st of March. And we'll have lots of content, so you can find us on our social media, Instagram, Facebook, the website. If you have any question, please leave us a message. Leave us a message through our website or even leave a comment here on YouTube. We are trying to do this as a channel for YouTube and also a podcast, so you'll find it easier, if you find it easier to just listen to this show, you will find many different options to consume. And also we will have soon articles, text articles on our website.